What if Archimedes' legendary bronze mirrors actually worked and burned the Roman fleet at Syracuse in 212 BC? Picture this. Hundreds of polished bronze shields positioned on the harbor walls, all reflecting sunlight onto Roman warships. Within minutes, the wooden vessels burst into flames. Rome's naval superiority vanished in smoke. The siege failed. Syracuse remained unconquered, and Archimedes lived to perfect even deadlier war machines. This single victory would shatter Roman confidence and inspire other Greek cities to rebel. Carthage, seeing Rome weakened, would launch a new offensive with Hannibal's remaining forces. The balance of power in the Mediterranean would shift completely. But here's the real game-changer. Archimedes survived to continue his research. His mechanical innovations would accelerate technological development by centuries. Steam engines could have appeared in ancient Greece instead of 18th century Britain. The Renaissance might have happened 1,000 years early. Rome's total dominance never occurs, and Hellenistic civilization thrives as an equal power. One man's mirrors could have rewritten the entire course of Western civilization. Did you know that Emperor Nero never actually fiddled while Rome burned because fiddles wouldn't be invented for another 1,500 years? When the Great Fire erupted in 64 AD, Nero wasn't even in the city. He was 35 miles away in Antium when news reached him. Instead of ignoring the crisis, he immediately rushed back to organize massive relief efforts. He opened his own palaces to house thousands of homeless refugees. Nero personally supervised firefighting operations throughout the burning city. He did play music, but it was a lyre, not a fiddle, singing lamentations about Troy's destruction to comfort traumatized survivors. So where did this cruel myth come from? Later, Christian historians deliberately spread the fiddle story to demonize the emperor who had persecuted them. They wanted him remembered as history's most heartless ruler. The irony is striking. Nero's actual response was remarkably humanitarian, yet the false narrative of a callous emperor playing music while his people suffered became one of history's most enduring lies. Sometimes the myths outlast the truth.
Join us on an epic journey back in time to the founding of Dublin, one of Europe's most vibrant cities. Legend has it that around the year 141 AD, a group of Viking explorers anchored at the mouth of the River Liffey. They were drawn by its strategic location and the lush green landscapes surrounding it. Imagine those longships rowing up the river, their dragon-painted prows cutting through the mist. Unbeknownst to these Norse seafarers, they would lay the groundwork for a thriving future metropolis. These early settlers established a trading post, which they called Difflin, a name derived from the Irish Dublin, meaning black pool. This would soon evolve from a simple trading camp into a bustling center of commerce and culture, setting the stage for the rich history and dynamic growth Dublin is known for today. From humble Viking beginnings to a famed European capital, Dublin's origin story is one of adventure, exploration, and the melding of cultures.
In a bustling city, a young artist struggled with her chaotic life. She painted passionately but felt her efforts scattered. One day, she met an old philosopher who asked, "What do you truly seek?" This question lingered, prompting her to align her goals with her deepest desires. She realized her art was a reflection of her quest for truth. By focusing her energy on this purpose, her work flourished, and she found peace. Her journey taught her that aligning goals with inner values enhances personal effectiveness. What do you seek? The philosopher's words echoed, urging reflection.
Did you know a single ship carrying grain once destroyed the world's greatest empire? In 541 AD, Constantinople was the crown jewel of civilization, home to 500,000 people. The markets bustled with merchants from 3 continents, while Emperor Justinian ruled from his golden palace. Then the grain ships arrived from Egypt, carrying more than just food. They brought Yersinia pestis, the bubonic plague. Within days, 10,000 people were dying daily in the streets. Bodies piled so high in the hippodrome they used it as a mass grave. The disease spared no one, not even Justinian himself, who lay dying with black swellings covering his body. Trade routes became highways of death, spreading the plague across Europe, Asia, and Africa. For 4 years, the pandemic raged, killing half the Byzantine population. Justinian survived, but his dream of restoring the Roman Empire died with 25 million people. A single plague ship had ended 1,000 years of Roman dominance forever. Did you know the people of Pompeii didn't slowly suffocate in ash like most people think? They were instantly vaporized by a 1,000-degree pyroclastic flow moving at 100 miles per hour. On August 24, 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted with unimaginable force. Within just 15 minutes, a superheated gas cloud reached the city. The temperature was so extreme that people's brains boiled instantly, causing skulls to explode. Victims were flash-heated into whatever position they were in when the cloud hit. Their soft tissue vaporized immediately, but bones and teeth remained perfectly preserved in ash molds. In 1863, Giuseppe Fiorelli developed a plaster casting technique that revealed these death poses. What he found was horrifying. People frozen mid-scream, mothers clutching children, families huddled together. These weren't slow deaths from ash burial, but instantaneous vaporization. This discovery completely changed how we understand volcanic disasters. It revolutionized modern evacuation protocols and saved countless lives. Sometimes the most famous historical events aren't what they seem. Did you know that throwing 2 men out a window started a war that killed 8 million people? On May 23, 1618, angry Protestant nobles stormed Prague Castle to confront Catholic imperial governors about religious freedom violations. What began as typical political negotiations quickly turned explosive. The Bohemian nobles had reached their breaking point with Habsburg oppression. In an unprecedented act of diplomatic violence, they grabbed imperial governors Wilhelm Slavata and Jaroslav Martinic, then hurled them out of a 3rd-story window. The officials plummeted 70 feet down onto a dung heap below. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the governors miraculously survived their fall into manure. Catholics claimed angels had saved them from certain death. But this single act of defenestration triggered the devastating 30 Years' War. Central Europe would burn for 3 decades. This bizarre incident of political violence established defenestration as Prague's signature tactic. 1 window, 2 terrified governors, 8 million dead. Sometimes the smallest acts have the biggest consequences. Did you know an entire scientific expedition fled the desert because locals warned them about a deadly worm that kills with electricity? In 1926, Roy Chapman Andrews led a paleontological expedition into Mongolia's Gobi Desert. The work was routine until they mentioned certain dig sites to local nomads. Every Mongolian refused to even speak the creature's name, calling it only the Olgoy Corcoy. They described instant death from electrical discharge, cattle found dead with no visible wounds. The creature could kill from a distance, they whispered with terror in their eyes. Witnesses spoke of a thick, blood-red worm that spat lightning and venom. The fear was so intense, passed down through generations, that Andrews abandoned several promising excavation sites. The legend of the death worm had defeated modern science.
You know the name Darwin, right? The old guy with the big white beard, the survival of the fittest dude. But what if I told you the real story is way more dramatic than some dusty textbook? It's a tale of a young man, a 5-year voyage that almost broke him, and an idea so radical it would shake the world to its core. See, young Charles Darwin wasn't destined for greatness. Far from it. His dad thought he was a lazy good-for-nothing, more interested in collecting beetles and shooting birds than becoming a respectable doctor. He even told Charles, "You will be a disgrace to yourself and all your family." Ouch. So to get him out of the house, his family wrangled him a spot on a ship, the HMS Beagle, as an unpaid naturalist and companion to the captain. It was supposed to be a 2-year trip. It lasted 5. For 5 years, Darwin sailed around the globe. He wasn't just chilling on the deck. He was trekking through dense rainforests, climbing volcanic mountains, and surviving earthquakes. He saw things that just didn't add up with what he'd been taught. In South America, he unearthed fossils of giant extinct sloths that looked suspiciously like the smaller living sloths nearby. It was like seeing a ghost of the past, but the real aha moment? That happened in a remote volcanic archipelago, a place you've definitely heard of, the Galapagos Islands. Here, Darwin noticed something peculiar. The mockingbirds on one island were slightly different from the ones on another. And the finches? Some had thick, powerful beaks for cracking nuts, while others had delicate tweezer-like beaks for picking insects. Each bird seemed perfectly tailored for its specific island home. It was as if some invisible hand had sculpted them, but it wasn't an invisible hand. Darwin returned to England a changed man. For the next 20 years, haunted by those finches and fossils, he secretly pieced together his revolutionary theory. He was terrified. He knew his idea, that life wasn't fixed but evolved through a brutal, random process he called natural selection, would be seen as heresy. He was so scared of the backlash that he hid his work, only writing, "I think," above a crude sketch of a tree of life in his private notebook. What finally forced his hand? A letter from another naturalist, Alfred Russel Wallace, who had independently come up with the exact same idea. Darwin was crushed. He was about to be scooped. Spurred into action, he finally published his masterpiece, On the Origin of Species. The world exploded. People called him a heretic, a madman. Cartoons depicted him as an ape. But he had started a revolution that couldn't be stopped. The lazy boy who his father thought was a disgrace had single-handedly rewritten the story of life on Earth, giving us the single greatest idea anyone has ever had. And it all started because he was a curious kid who just really liked beetles. All right, picture this. A giant wooden horse left on the shores of Troy. The Greeks have seemingly sailed away in defeat after a 10-year siege. The Trojans, ecstatic, drag this massive offering to the gods into their impenetrable city and party like there's no tomorrow. We all know what happens next, right? Soldiers pop out, open the gates, and Troy burns to the ground. It's the ultimate story of clever deception, a tale told for 3,000 years. But what if I told you it probably never happened? At least not like that. What if the most famous trick in history wasn't a trick at all, but a massive historical misunderstanding? The story of the Trojan horse comes to us primarily from the Roman poet Virgil in his epic poem, the Aeneid, written hundreds of years after the supposed event. Homer's Iliad, which is the main source for the Trojan War itself, actually ends before the fall of Troy. It mentions the horse, but only briefly and almost in passing. So our most detailed account is basically historical fan fiction, written by a guy from a completely different empire. So if there was no giant wooden horse full of soldiers, what really brought down the mighty walls of Troy? Well, historians and archaeologists have some fascinating theories, and they're way more grounded in reality. The most popular and compelling theory is that the Trojan horse was actually a metaphor. A metaphor for what? An earthquake. Stay with me here. The god of the sea, Poseidon, was also the god of horses and the god of earthquakes. He was often called the earth shaker. The ancient Greeks associated the destructive, thundering power of an earthquake with the stamping of giant, divine horses. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Archaeological digs at the site of ancient Troy have shown multiple layers of destruction. And one of those layers, corresponding to the time of the Trojan War, shows clear evidence of, you guessed it, a major earthquake. There are cracked foundations and toppled walls. So is it possible that a powerful earthquake breached Troy's legendary defenses, and the Greeks, seeing their opportunity, charged through the rubble? The survivors, trying to explain the sudden godlike destruction of their walls, might have described it as the work of Poseidon's horse. Over centuries of retelling, this metaphorical horse could have slowly transformed into a literal, physical wooden horse. But wait, there's another cool theory. What if the horse wasn't a natural disaster but a piece of military technology? In the ancient world, siege engines were often given animal names. We know the Assyrians, who were masters of siege warfare around that time, used massive wheeled battering rams, often covered in wet animal hides to protect them from fire. These things were huge, timber-framed machines, sometimes with a pointed front, vaguely resembling an animal's head. Imagine a giant wood and hide-covered battering ram, rolling up to the gates of Troy. To a civilian who'd never seen such a weapon, what might it look like? A monstrous wooden animal, perhaps? It's entirely plausible that the Trojan horse was simply an ancient battering ram that the Greeks used to smash down the city gates. The story of soldiers hiding inside could have been a later embellishment to make the tale more dramatic. A story of cunning over brute force. So we have a devastating earthquake or a terrifying new piece of war technology. Both are far more likely than a group of elite soldiers sitting quietly inside a wooden statue, hoping nobody sneezes, while it's being dragged through a city. The real story isn't about a sneaky gift, it's about the raw power of nature or the brutal reality of ancient warfare. The beauty of the Trojan Horse story is its symbolism, the idea that a gift can hide a danger, that pride leads to a fall. That's why it has survived for millennia. But the next time you hear it, remember what might be hiding behind the legend. The tremor of the earth, the crash of a battering ram, and a story that got a little bigger in the telling. The truth, it turns out, might be even more epic than the myth.
In a bustling city, a young artist struggled with self-doubt. Each day she faced the blank canvas, her mind a whirl of uncertainty. One morning she decided to paint her fears. As colors danced across the canvas, she realized each stroke was a step towards understanding herself. Her mentor, observing her transformation, remarked, "Fear is a canvas, paint it with courage." The artist smiled, her heart lightened. She learned that challenges were not obstacles, but opportunities to create. Her art became a reflection of her journey, inspiring others to embrace their own struggles with creativity.
Imagine it's a hot summer day in July 1518 in the city of Strasbourg. A woman, known to us as Frau Trophea, steps out of her house and into the street. But she's not going to the market or to visit a friend. She starts to dance. Not a joyful, celebratory dance, but a frantic, desperate jig. Her arms flail, her legs jerk, and she just can't stop. She dances for hours, then for days. No food, no water, just this relentless, agonizing dance. She's not alone for long. Within just 1 week, something truly bizarre begins to unfold. It's like a contagion, but not one anyone has ever seen before. Dozens more people join her, their bodies taken over by the same uncontrollable urge to dance. Men, women, children. They fill the streets, their movements a chaotic, terrifying spectacle. By August, the number has swollen to a staggering 400 people. 400 people dancing day and night. Their faces twisted in a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Now you might think the city leaders would try to restrain them, to help them. Well, they tried, but in the most tragically misguided way possible. Based on the medical advice of the time, they believed the dancers were suffering from hot blood. Their prescription? The dancers needed to sweat it out. They had to dance the fever away. So what did the authorities do? They cleared out guild halls to give the dancers more space. They even hired musicians to play pipes and drums, and went so far as to build a large wooden stage in the middle of the marketplace to encourage them to keep going. They literally tried to party the plague away. But this wasn't a party. It was a death march. The constant grueling movement took a horrifying toll. People's feet bled, their bodies broke down. One by one, they started collapsing. They died from sheer exhaustion, from strokes, from heart attacks. Imagine the scene. A stage filled with people dancing to their deaths, surrounded by a terrified, confused crowd. This living nightmare continued for over a month before. As mysteriously as it began, it finally faded away. So what on earth happened? Modern historians and scientists have a theory. They believe it was a case of mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria. Life in 1518 Strasbourg was incredibly hard. The people were suffering from extreme stress caused by famine, poverty, and rampant diseases like smallpox and syphilis. This collective trauma, this shared despair, may have exploded into this bizarre physical manifestation. It wasn't a curse or a supernatural plague, but a psychological one. A desperate, tragic dance of a community pushed past its breaking point. The mind can be a powerful and sometimes terrifying thing. What other strange historical event are you curious about? Let me know in the comments.
Did you know that 967 people chose to kill themselves rather than surrender to the Romans? In 73 AD, Jewish rebels had held Masada Fortress for 3 years against impossible odds. The massive rock plateau seemed unbreakable, towering above the desert like a natural castle. But Roman legions had finally built a giant ramp to breach their walls. Capture meant torture, slavery, and humiliation in Roman arenas. Their leader Eleazar ben Yair gathered everyone and spoke the unthinkable. They would die as free people, not Roman slaves. Families embraced for the final time as fathers prepared to kill their own children. 10 men were chosen by lot to kill all the others, then themselves. They burned their possessions, so Romans would find nothing of value. When legions finally broke through, they expected fierce battle. Instead, they found complete silence and 960 bodies lying peacefully. Only 2 women and 5 children survived, hidden in water cisterns. The Romans stood speechless, witnessing the ultimate act of defiance. Did you know that an inventor was killed by his own torture device in ancient Greece? In 560 BC, a craftsman named Perillos approached the tyrant Phalaris of Acragas with an unusual gift. It seemed normal at first. Skilled artisans often sought royal favor with their creations. But this bronze bull was different. It was hollow inside with a door on the side. Perillos explained how victims would be locked inside while fires burned beneath. The bronze would heat slowly, roasting the person alive from all sides. But the most twisted part was the acoustic design. The bull's head contained tubes that transformed human screams into realistic bull sounds. Phalaris was impressed, but decided the inventor should test his own creation first. Perillos was shoved inside and the fires were lit. As the bronze heated, his desperate clawing echoed from within. His screams emerged as haunting bull bellows, exactly as designed. The Brazen Bull became the ultimate symbol of Sicilian tyranny. One man's invention became his own death sentence.
Have you ever heard of a ghost story that's actually true? A story where over 100 people vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a single cryptic clue? Let's travel back in time over 400 years ago to the shores of North America and uncover the chilling mystery of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. It all started in 1587. A group of 117 English men, women, and children, full of hope, set sail for the New World to establish a permanent settlement. Their leader was a man named John White. They landed on Roanoke Island, just off the coast of modern-day North Carolina. Things were tough, but they were determined. They built homes, they started families. In fact, the very first English child born in the Americas, Virginia Dare, John White's own granddaughter, was born right there in the Roanoke colony. But their supplies started running dangerously low. With winter approaching, they knew they wouldn't survive without help. So they convinced their governor, John White, to sail back to England to gather more food and tools. It was a heart-wrenching decision for him. He was leaving behind his daughter, his brand new granddaughter, everyone he knew, but he promised he would return as soon as possible. He thought he'd be gone for a few months, a year at most. Music shifts becoming more tense and dramatic. But fate had other plans. When White got back to England, he found his country on the brink of war with Spain. The Spanish Armada was coming. Every available ship, including his, was seized for the war effort. He was trapped. For 3 long, agonizing years, John White fought to get a ship back to his family, back to his colony. Imagine the torment. Not knowing if they were starving, if they were safe. Finally, in August of 1590, on his granddaughter Virginia's 3rd birthday, he made it back to Roanoke Island. As his boat approached the shore, he expected to see a bustling village. He expected to hear the sounds of life, to see smoke rising from chimneys. Instead, he was met with a deafening, bone-chilling silence. The settlement was gone. Not just the people, the entire village. The houses had been carefully dismantled, not violently torn down. There were no signs of a struggle, no bodies, no graves. It was as if the 117 colonists had simply packed up and vanished into thin air. Music becomes softer, more mysterious. They searched everywhere, frantically looking for any sign of what happened. And then they found it. The only clue left behind, carved into a wooden post of the fort, was a single word, Croatoan, and on a nearby tree the letters CRO. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, now called Hatteras Island, and also the name of a friendly Native American tribe that lived there. Before White had left, he and the colonists had agreed on a secret code. If they had to leave, they would carve their destination into a tree. If they were in danger, they would carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross. So did they simply move to Croatoan Island to live with the natives? It seems like the most logical answer, but a series of storms forced White to abandon his search before he could even get to Croatoan. He was forced back to England, heartbroken, and he never saw his family again. He died without ever knowing what happened to the lost colony. For centuries, people have tried to solve the puzzle, Were they assimilated into local tribes? Some modern DNA evidence suggests this might be true. Did they try to sail back to England and get lost at sea? Or did something far more sinister happen? The mystery of those 117 souls and that one cryptic word, Croatoan, remains one of America's oldest and most haunting unsolved mysteries. They walked into the wilderness of a new world and were never seen again.
In a world where aircraft engines had digital twins, a young engineer named Alex pondered the nature of reality. If these twins predict every failure, Alex mused, do they hold the truth of the engine's soul? His mentor, an old philosopher, replied, perhaps they reveal not the engine's soul, but our own reliance on certainty. As Alex watched the digital twin simulate a perfect flight, he realized the twin was a mirror, reflecting humanity's quest for control. In seeking perfection, Alex thought, do we lose the beauty of imperfection? The digital twin flickered, and Alex smiled, embracing the unknown.
Here are 5 things you didn't know about the Blood Eagle, the most brutal execution in Viking history. First, King Ella of Northumbria suffered this fate in 867 AD as revenge for killing the legendary Viking leader Ragnar Lothbrok. The Vikings carved deep cuts along his spine while he was still breathing. Second, they broke each rib outward from the backbone, creating the shape of eagle wings. The victim had to remain silent throughout or risk dishonoring their death. Third, the executioners pulled the lungs out through the back, letting them flutter like wings. This was done as a sacrifice to Odin, the Norse god of war and death. Fourth, only the most hated enemies received this punishment. It required special curved knives and took hours to complete properly. Fifth, witnessing this execution terrorized entire kingdoms into surrender. Archaeological evidence from mass graves in England confirms these rituals actually happened. The psychological impact was so powerful that many rulers chose exile over facing Viking justice. One execution could end wars before they started.